All right, everybody. Welcome to New Battlefields. We have an exciting show today for you guys, planned today for you guys, with Dr. Melissa Sassi, and of course with us, Cyber Warrior. So if that's what you're here for, stay tuned. And welcome again. My name is Eric Belardo, and I am your Cyber Papa. So thank you very much for tuning in on New Battlefields. Today we have a great show with some great guests. So let me bring in my co-host, Mr. Cyber Warrior.
What's going on, Eric?
Warrior, what's going on?
I'm much, man. Doing pretty good. Just made it back in time, so I'm happy about that. I was able to make it for the show. I'm excited for what we got going on today. I've never talked to Melissa, so I'm interested to see her point of view and her perspective on things, and really what all is in front of us in the show ahead.
Well, if you've never talked to Melissa, hang on, because she's amazing. So today we're here to talk about Hispanics in cyber. We're going to talk about Melissa's role over in IBM. She actually has a great show, which we'll talk a little bit about. And she had some amazing guests this week on her show. So we're going to bring her on here. Hello, Melissa. How are you?
I am absolutely fabulous. I have had the best week. I don't know how to put it into words. It was really both, I think, exciting professionally and personally. So I'm happy to talk to you all about it when the time is right.
All right. Well, why don't you tell our audience about yourself? What do you do, and talk about the show a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dr. Melissa Sassi. It still feels a little funny calling myself a doctor. My daughter said to me the other day, "Mom, I don't think you look like or act like a doctor." And I said to her, I'm like, "Well, what's one supposed to like look and talk like?" And then she said, "I don't know, just not you." And so I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but I thought, all right, okay, I'll go with that. She's saying I look young, like I just turned 20, maybe. Not that you can't be a doctor at 20, but there you go. No, go ahead.
Hauser.
Well, I don't think any of us actually look like what we do. Let's be honest.
I don't know.
I've heard that before, though. Even in the military and stuff, being in IT and cyber and growing up playing football, and I've always been in the computers. It was always, you don't look like you'd be. Well, I am. I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I'm a dork. That's who I am. I'm proud of it.
Yeah, my partner always tells me, he's like, "You're such a nerd." I mean, he uses other like colorful letters in front of that with a G. But I'm like, well, do I look like a fucking nerd? And I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to say fucking nerd.
No, you're allowed.
Okay, perfect. And I see he's vaping, and I was like, God, I forgot to vape before he joined. What am I going to do? Now, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So everybody's on it. I work at IBM. That's my day job. Actually, my night and morning, and maybe my all-time job as well. Yeah, Mary says, no, the coolest ones don't act like typical doctors. LOL. I love that, Mary. Well done. But yeah, I run, and when I first started at IBM, I came on board to create a new startup program. And it was really funny because I didn't quite know what I was getting into. When I heard of IBM, I thought, oh, I'm going to go into the cloud team and I'm going to work on bringing, startups to the cloud is kind of what I thought. And then I realized, wait a second, Melissa, you're working in the enterprise computing team. Like, you're in the team that, has mainframes, IBM Z. And I thought, oh God, I'm getting fired real fast because startups don't have any money, let alone to think about, an on-prem solution. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I thought I asked all the good questions. And I thought, no, you know what, boat's still out. Let's see how it's going. And, 6 months after that, I'm researching, I'm thinking, I'm coming up with some interesting solutions that would enable startups to, play around with in a development environment. And I'm thinking, okay, where could this go? And I'm not sure. And then I stumbled upon this really interesting product that's called IBM Cloud HyperProtect Services that is essentially IBM Z in the cloud, or mainframe as a service. And I thought, okay, let me check this out a little bit. Now we're talking, and I realized that the startups would have a kind of public cloud front end in terms of how would they go about like purchasing or provisioning, if you will. But in reality, on the back end, you've got the security, scalability, and uptime of a mainframe. So I thought, okay, all right, we're onto something here. And I know there's always a lot of conversation around, is the mainframe alive? Is it going to keep going? It is alive. So for you haters out there, it's alive. And
they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in with, I think a friendly group here, hopefully. So.
And IBM Zs have the best faceplates with the LEDs and everything. So,
Exactly. And so what was really interesting about this is, me being someone who did not come from, an enterprise computing background, from a mainframe background. I'm not somebody who's spent my entire, career in the business like many of my colleagues who, grew up learning COBOL and grew up learning, programming languages that, a lot of people also think are dead, which, by the way, that's a myth as well for those of you haters. We'll talk later. But, I learned a lot. I felt like in the beginning, like, shoot, I don't fit in here. I don't understand these acronyms. And because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a developer. I couldn't code my way out of a cardboard box. And I thought, and I've worked in tech for years. I spent 5 years at Microsoft before joining. I built internet and energy access solutions and brought digital skills to the newly connected, ran a startup program, with early stage, telecommunications and energy access companies. So I've been around and I've worked with very, seasoned engineers, but, I can't code. At any rate, I quickly learned that, I had a real opportunity to make enterprise computing relevant to a new segment within the IBM business. And I realized that I was really one of the only ones within my division, and in many cases throughout the entire company, minus, a few folks here and there and our startup with IBM team. I realized that, I have something really interesting to offer the company in terms of cultural shift, in terms of, really thinking beyond, enterprise, big enterprise customers. And it's been a lot of fun. We kicked off 2019 by bringing 15 startups into our program. And last year, we increased that number to 30. It's a program called IBM Cloud, or IBM HyperProtect Accelerator. And yesterday, I made an announcement at IBM Z Day, which is our flagship digital conference, that we achieved a big milestone, and that's having 100 startups in our portfolio. So it's our road to 100. And what's even cooler about that is our 100th startup is Beat Club. Beat Club. Now, you may not know who Beat Club is, so if you don't, go out and fucking Google that, because you should know now. Beat Club is Timbaland's company. For those of you who don't know Timbaland, he is just an amazing producer. He just won Time 100, most influential people. So imagine on the day that is announced, top 100 people, most influential people in the world, they get the 100th startup as part of my IBM HyperProtect Accelerator. So I don't know which is better, but Timbaland said he was equally excited about both. I mean, this is a guy that's, producing, music with Drake and Beyonce and Alicia Keys and Jay-Z. And imagine in a few months, he is going to be running off of a Linux One machine, off of a mainframe.
His entire studio production?
This is his startup that's called Beat Club, and they're looking to revolutionize and I would say democratize access for, you know, that kid in your basement, not your basement. I hope you don't have kids in your basement. That kid in his basement.
I'm in my basement.
In their bedroom, you know, whatever, who are making beats. You know, how many times do you hear about these unknown kids and it could even be an adult. It's not even about a kid, but you know, in Uganda and India and wherever across the planet, how easy is it for them to get access to a record label or to send out their beats and have somebody pay attention? Hard, right? Or to get access to beats or samples or loops or whatever. And imagine having a you know, let's say, you know, all this money and all these processes that you have to go through. Beat Club is introducing an entire kind of end-to-end marketplace and solution for your independent, maybe up and coming or even well-known producers. So
that's just amazing. That is just amazing. And so yesterday, yeah, that he was on your show.
Well, yesterday he joined me for a celebrity keynote at IBM Z Day. IBM Z Day typically has about 10 plus thousand people at the event. We were the celebrity keynote that covered, let's see, 4 of the 5 tracks. So it covered, I can't remember exactly which tracks it covered, but it was really exciting. Not only I think for us IBMers who, are really inspired by doing something revolutionary in the music world, but a lot of our employees and our clients are also music creators themselves and understand the process of going about making a song, or even being able to get yourself out there in front of a record label, or even if you make beats or whatever it is you make, being able to sell your wares, if you will, and also protect your intellectual property. There's a smart contracts component, that will be powered by IBM's blockchain solution or Hyperledger. So all kinds of cool stuff like that.
That's just amazing.
Yeah, and then he came on my live stream today. So we brought his entire team. I've been with him for 2 days. And I rolled in hot to this talk because I went to go pick up these. And let me just read the card.
Read the card. Read the card.
Melissa, we love you. Thank you. Timbaland and the Beat Club crew. I'm like giddy right now. I just picked these things up. I'm like, oh my God! Ah! So there you go.
The fangirl is real.
I guess so. No, I'm very good, kind of hanging out with, with I guess superstars. When I was at Microsoft, before I transitioned my career over to what I'm doing now, and what I did at, in my last role when I was at Microsoft, I managed Microsoft's celebrity talent globally, and also the kind of operational aspects of all the global advertising. So I worked a lot in managing our Hollywood directors. So it was, a fun job, really cool. Dr. Sassi is a badass, says Mary. Thank you, Mary. I love you, Mary. I love it.
You've got your fan club here too, as well. So
that's perfect.
So let's talk about, I know you, and we've known each other for a couple of years, and I know you are big proponent of the Hispanics in the organizations and stuff. So first of all, I'll ask, what are you guys doing at IBM for Hispanic Heritage Month?
So perfect. I would say that, it's hard for me to comment, all of across IBM as a whole, because, give or take, we've got, 400,000 employees, give or take, depending upon the month. And sometimes it's hard to keep up, especially during these times in any big company. But I can talk specifically about, my program, just to make sure I don't misspeak or have to Google really quickly and think fast on my feet, which I'm fine doing, but I want to do the show justice and, talk about what I know and,
that was a little bit broad. So
Yeah,
let me.
oh gosh, how are we solving world
What are
peace?
you guys doing?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we're doing specifically within the IBM HyperProtect Accelerator is we're very focused on making sure that our founders, our Latinx community, is included in our application process when it comes to sourcing and scouting and identifying startups that come from the Latinx community. And we have about 14% of our startups that have at least one Latinx founder, and that's a big percentage because if you think about it, I saw a stat on Instagram actually, and it is a reputable stat because I'll tell you where it came from because I know the people who presented it, but there is an organization called Female Founders Alliance that I work with, and they look at stats. For example, this is not across the entire Latinx community, but it is across the Latinx community, specifically female Latinx founders. Did you know that less than 1% of venture capital funds for startups goes to female founders of Latinx descent?
That is, and if you look at the screen right now, this came out September 9, and the Hispanic community representation in the cybersecurity workforce, 4%.
It's sad. It's sad. I'll give you another stat which is unrelated to the Hispanic community or Latinx community, but if I think about even I'll give you the female founder. I talked about females who are Latinx. Females, women who are founders of startups, they received less than 3% of venture capital, less than 3% of all venture capital funds that went out to startups in the US, less than 3%.
Yeah,
it's dismal.
So let me speak on that a little bit. I got a question.
Yeah, sure.
Is that more so, and again, I always come back to this because I know a lot of what I do, even when I'm trying to get people interested in cybersecurity or IT or business or whatever the case may be, comes down to lack of applying or lack of not feeling worthy, right? So even when you look at the job market and people applying for jobs, because of the way the industry has been for so many years, women feel like they have to meet more of a criteria than men, where men will see, right? They'll see, I like this job, I'm applying. They don't even look at what the requirements are.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think one is, there's just, there are a lot of conversations that are happening around, what it's like to work in tech. So there are some, I think, stereotypes around, that's for guys. I think the other thing is, I look at myself, for example, and I always talk about how I can't code my way out of a cardboard box. And the reason I always say that is because of a specific thing that happened to me in my life. And I've heard it happen to many others. I've heard this from Black women. I've heard this from Hispanic women. I've heard this from Black men. I've heard this not necessarily from Hispanic men, but I'd be interested in hearing if others have had this situation. But for me, for example, when I was in college, and I'm the first doctor in my family. My mom didn't graduate from college. She had 3 kids by the time she was 16 years old. My dad didn't go to college. My mom's mother and father, they didn't know how to read or write. They only had a 4th grade education, and they didn't know how to read or write. I don't know what they were doing, those 4 years or 5 years, but that's another conversation. At any rate, I remember kind of thinking I think it might be nice to do something with tech or computers. I think that could be something, good for the future. And I walked in the room and, no one looked like me. And it was mostly boys. And not that I have a problem, hanging out with all dudes, because most of my friends are dudes, and I worked on Wall Street. I work in tech. I often am, the only woman in the room, depending upon where I'm at, and I thrive well and I'm okay, but at that time I wasn't so comfortable in my own skin, and I felt like I stuck out, and I felt like, oh, maybe this is not the place for me. And I felt the same way when I took one of my science courses. And so I kind of look across STEM in general, and I'm not sure that I was exposed, number one, early on. And I think it's really important for us to make sure that we're exposing, women and girls and people in minority groups or underserved communities early on, and in the right way, through the right pathways and avenues. And I think that the other piece of it is, once you're there, I think it's important, for, us to have allies, both female allies, male allies, whatever gender, you or non-conforming, whatever is your thing. But I think you are correct when it comes to that job description. I think women do have a tendency, not all women, but there are a lot of studies out there that I've read that a woman will look at, and this is, again, not every woman, so I don't want to generalize too much, but a tendency to look at that job description and say, oh, okay, well, I don't meet this one, so I'm not going to apply because I don't meet these two. And a guy's like, hey, that job sounds awesome. I'm going to go try for it. And again, not all guys do that, but I think when you look at it just straight gender-wise, I think you are correct in saying that a lot of women, they have to have it all.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to the societal factor of it, and the issues we've had in the past where women feel like, and again, not all women and not all men, but women feel like they have to be better than or have to meet the majority just to set themselves apart. And it sucks in my eyes because I'll be the first one to tell you, when I look at job descriptions, I don't even look at the requirements. I look at what it says, that what you're going to do, and I say apply. If I want to do that job, I apply. I don't even look at the requirements.
And I think more women need to be more comfortable in their own skin. Yes. And listen less to that thing in the back of your head, that person sitting on your shoulder. I did a talk today about imposter syndrome, for example, and not all women suffer from imposter syndrome. Not every man, it's not just a woman thing. And I did a talk about how I, would often feel that way. And I'm feeling less and less like that now. And I think part of that has been speaking out about my vulnerabilities, speaking out about the things that make me uncomfortable, what makes me scared, when I don't feel like I did the right thing, and being open about it, and talking to my friend Donna and talking to my other friends who've said, hey, here's this formula, or here's this book. And now, instead of kind of thinking, well, wow, I don't belong, I talk about feeling like I don't belong, and then, give other people formulas of how I kind of, feel comfortable in my own skin or get out of my own head. And it seems to have worked. It's really boosted my confidence and my, ability to see myself as, hey, no, you're an absolute rock star. You're an asset. You've got these superpowers. Maybe you can't code your way out of a cardboard box. That's okay. Pair me up with somebody who can, and we'll rock and roll together.
That's correct. Sure. And I want to bring you back to something you said, and you guys were talking about. It's the not seeing yourself in representation in those fields, jobs, in the room.
Like role models, if you will.
The role models. And seeing yourself. So being a Hispanic, I've been in the industry for 32 years. When I first started, I'd say this all the time. I was in a minority engineering program in a class of 3,000 people, and there were only 30 minorities. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have any role models to look up to. In that, and when I started in the field, it was even worse than now. And the same thing for women. There weren't that many women in the technical fields, in the engineering side, the computer science side, and having that representation in the field, mentorship, support, and it doesn't have to be like you said. Well, I talk all the time about allies. And who's going to be your ally? Who's going to be the person that's going to pull you from the bootstraps, like they say, and say, let's go, let's do this. You can do this. And then about the imposter syndrome, it's something that we need to talk more because it happens to everybody. You know,
Eric, you say that, but I think a lot of that has to do with the gatekeepers. I hate to
Yeah.
say that, but I think it does, because you look at the elitists, you look at the gatekeepers that simply tell you, oh, you have to have this certification, you have to be able to code. Look, I'll be the first one to tell you, when I started doing pen testing and red teaming, and this was years ago when I started experimenting with it, I completely disregarded all of the code courses that I took in college. I didn't think I was ever going to need it. Now, saying that, do I think it would have been a benefit? Yes, definitely a benefit. But I took it more along the lines of a pen tester, where the tools are already there. You just need to know how to use the tools. You don't have to know how to write a complete script. I will say, as a caveat to that, as a red teamer, it's completely different. You better know how to get in without being seen, which means you need to know how to modify code and do all these other things. But as a pen tester, even as a blue teamer, as GRC, at 90% of your fields in security, you don't know how, you have to know how to code. You don't. Yet you will see so many people be like, oh, you need to, and I'll be the first one to tell you, if you want to be a hacker, take Python. Learn Python if you want to be a hacker. Learn Go. I will tell you that because a lot of scripts are written in that, and you want to modify them if you want to be a hacker in the terms of red teamer. But if you want to be a pen tester, if you want to be on the blue team, coding isn't necessary. It helps.
Bringing that back to the, like we said, the underrepresented. Okay. So you've got a lot of folks out there that first, they don't see themselves as, like Melissa said, and actually one of our guests yesterday, Isabella, said, they always tell you, tech is not for the girls. Here, go play with,
I think the other thing too is it's not just about, kind of role models and representation. I think the other thing about it is I think there's kind of a fundamental mismatch between the way that computer science, for example, is taught, even the words that you use, and the way that it should be taught for different people in terms of the way your brain works or interest levels. And what I mean by that is, if you put computer and science together, it just sounds hard. And it sounds hard, right? But imagine if, and I'm not saying that it's not hard, because it is, okay? But imagine if you were to think about it as an art form.
And it is. Okay? It is. It's an
art.
Because
it is an art form. And imagine if it were taught like an art from the very beginning, to really bring in diverse and different people. And I mean that by saying, in reality, what are you doing? You're thinking, you're doing computational thinking, and you're writing instructions in another language. And it's just kind of, I don't want to say it's like learning French or like learning German, but or like learning or Hebrew, but it is. Instead of, trying to give directions to, the, Israeli dude down the street to tell him how to get to the coffee shop, I'm telling a computer to go out and do these, take these X number of actions. Take this, do this, do this, in a language it understands. And I think if we were to teach computer science like this at an early age, more like an art form, and less as something mystical, I think it would be demystified and it would be more approachable.
Do you see my face? I got the big smile on it, because in my show, I always say that cybersecurity is the art and science of securing a system. So I always put the art in front.
I didn't even know this either.
Because they, not every security is done the same way. So you have to have the practice, the art, the how are you going to secure this system or this software or this? So it's an art form. It's an art form.
It is. And if you think of that, if you think of hackers, they think outside the box. What do artists do? They think outside the box. They develop art in a specific way. And so it's thinking outside of the realm of structural thinking. You are thinking artistically in that, you know what, this looks good. This will work. This will work. This blends together really well. And you could think of it like a painting where these colors blend together really well. But we are so caught up in it being a science and everything have to being structural and procedural and everything being exact, when that's where you have flaws. Because let's be honest, Science is all about hypotheses, theories, and eventually you get to proving these hypotheses and theories. But in art, it's about blending together these different things. And it's about making sure that it looks right and it looks pretty.
It's so beautiful.
Your creativity.
So in reality, this is why, if you look at the MIT Model Railroad Club, the original hackers and the way they did things, that's how they got the name. That's how they got the term, because they thought outside the box to make things work in their way and do it in a way that looked better for them. And so, you know, when we talk about, and we talk about diversity a lot, me and Eric talk about this all the time, even in private phone conversations, you know, it's all about your different mindset, because everybody brings something different to the table. And it's just like art. Someone might tell you this art piece is gorgeous, but someone else may say, and that's ugly, I don't like it, it has no purpose, which is fine. It's a difference of opinion. You see things differently. But in order to get that mindset, you have to have people from different upbringings, different ways of life, different ways of thinking. And let's be honest, genetically, women and men think completely differently.
Well, I think this is why it's super important that, you know, we incorporate, you know, diverse audiences and diverse people into building products, services, and solutions. Because if you're builders, if you're creators, if you're makers, if you're doers are not reflective of your audience, you're not truly going to be able to incorporate something that is, in many ways, what your audience needs. And I think that we are, you know, running into big problems, you know, if we're not careful when it comes to, you know, the AI solutions that we're creating. You know, significant bias when you look at who's creating what, who's doing what. It's a scary thing.
But we have that. We all have biases.
You can't help it, even if
it's ingrained in you.
Bias.
But we need to consciously think about it and really go and look at it from a perspective of cybersecurity. And again, you brought up computer science and programming. In diversity, in cybersecurity, you need diversity. You need it. You absolutely need it, because of the difference of opinion and a different way of thinking. Because if you don't have it, you're going to be stuck in your mindset. Now, regardless of who you have with you, a lot of times you're surrounded by a group of people that are brought up the same way, relatively speaking. So they all have the same focus of structure or procedure or something like that. And that's the same thing. Look, as somebody who's a veteran and loves working with other veterans, if you are working with all vets, you don't get anything outside of that way of thinking. So it makes it very difficult to develop a program and develop a way, a program that is able to mesh together with others.
Yeah.
Especially learn how to creatively curse. Yeah.
I can teach some creative curses. I really can. I'm good.
That's the art form. That's the
it
art
is.
form.
I just skip right to the curses because my dad was a drill sergeant, you know.
Oh God. And let me guess, he was an old school drill sergeant.
He ran a boot camp, I'm telling you. And so by the time I was, I don't know, you know, 6 or so, like I knew everything what was going on. I knew about whatever, you know, I could say all the awful things. So I maybe that's why I fit right in sometimes with the boys.
There's nothing wrong with that. Look,
No.
And it's funny too, because me and my wife talk about it. And I grew up with 3 sisters, so I got along with women better. So I always had female friends. Me and guys didn't get along because I wasn't the type that was like real. I didn't like to talk shit on people. It was not my style of communication. Whereas my wife with 2 brothers got along with guys better. And so it's her form of communication is sarcasm and talking shit. So, you know, it's one of those things where I'm very much more, I don't like to do that. It's just not in me. I do it now as I've gotten older and been in the military and made some friends and things like that. It's, you know, become part of me, but that's not my normal way of communication. So it's funny to see that, you know, people that grow up with male friends think differently, and people that grow up with female friends.
I grew up with male friends. My brother, you know, when I was a kid, my brother would, we played Army Man, and I was the Army Man, and I got timed, and I'd have to rappel with this like small little rope off of this big wall, and it was like a 2-story wall. and I'd have to be at the top, and then I'd have to bounce down till I got to the bottom, and then run back up. And he would tie me up to this lazy boy, this rusty lazy boy, like rust-colored lazy boy, not rusty.
Okay, not rusty.
And it was like this old lazy boy, and he'd tie me to see how quickly I could get out of the, out of the ropes. And I'd be tied up, like, even my mouth was tied up. And now I realize, like, wait a second, I think I was abused. But I know how to get along with boys just fine now. I don't resent them.
All right. I'm not going to talk about getting tied down or anything like that.
It's just a different way of thinking, and it really is. It's one of those things. And again, we talk diversity. It's funny. Carmen puts that up. She has a truck driver mouth in the family. So do I. I don't hold back in front of my kids. I've got 5 boys. Cyber Papa has 100 kids. It happens.
Oh my gosh! Look at you. You all have like an army. I've got 3. I don't know if you two know my story. You may have watched something or heard something about my story. But I, the work that I do right now was actually came from something deeply personal, and actually my worst nightmare, any parent's worst nightmare. I have 3 kids, Zahra, Zahran, and Yumna. When they were 3, 5, and 7, their father and I split up. And, the day that our divorce was supposed to be final, instead of signing the papers and us moving on with our lives and figuring out how do we split the kids and go about doing our lives in a different way than we had been, doing it before. He picked them up from school. He took them to the airport, and he took them to his home country. My ex-husband is from Tunis, Tunisia, which is sandwiched in between Algeria and Libya, the spark of the Arab Spring. So the country that had the Jasmine Revolution that led to much of the many things that we see still occurring, throughout the region, today. Led to the downfall of Gaddafi. It led to the downfall of the regime in the Ben Ali regime in that particular country, the things we saw in Egypt. And, for a variety of different reasons, I couldn't get my kids back because I didn't really feel comfortable, having him murdered and buried in the desert. I thought that's probably morally and legally a challenge, despite what he'd done. I had people offer me, don't get me wrong. And, I felt scared to have them re-kidnapped because I thought, would I then be, doing the same thing? Would I be doing something illegal in his country? Yes. What if somebody got hurt? What if I got caught? What would happen 10 years from now? And, legally, I didn't have a prayer, and because the court in the U.S. has no jurisdiction there. And the country is not a signatory to the Hague Convention, so there's nothing I could do from that perspective. And I took I played the long game, if you will, meaning let's make sure my kids know who they are. Let's make sure that my kids know that they have a mother who cares about them, and would send them gifts. 3 years later, I built up enough confidence and gumption, or I had enough gumption, if you will, oomph in me to say, okay, it's time to go visit them in that country. And I'd been there many times, so I knew what I was doing, but it's in a village, so the only place I could stay would be with him and his family. Imagine you've got to spend 2 weeks with someone who kidnapped your kids and that person's family. Not the best experience, even though you got to see your kids. It was really hard. And when I came back, I said, I need to have my own clout. I need to have my own relationships, and I need to have my own thing going on there. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I needed to learn to speak the language, and I knew I needed to have my own relationships and my own network. So I taught myself how to speak his dialect of Arabic, which I'm not bad. I'm okay. I can get by in Tunisian Arabic quite well. I've done a Tunisian Arabic TV interview, news interview. So long as they stick to the questions and I prep a lot in advance, I can do it. I was in a video for the U.S. Embassy in Tunisia. Why? Because one day my daughter said to me, and this is when I was working at Microsoft, she said, Mommy, I'm learning Microsoft. That was her accent at the time. So what do you mean? And I realized she was learning how to use computers. And at that time, it was very rudimentary. So, Word and Excel and PowerPoint and, your basic office stuff. And the 30, 40 kids in the classroom only had one computer. And they would, put it up on the, the projector, and the kids would go up and practice and do their things on this one computer. So I set out on this mission to help bring digital inclusivity to this classroom. And, instead of bringing one computer or, 30, 40 computers to one classroom, I ended up creating a bit of a program and a campaign where I brought 400 computers to 20 schools across the country from Microsoft and HP, and ended up realizing that this little project thing helped me compartmentalize what was going on inside of me. It helped me compartmentalize my pain. It also gave me something to do other than work or whatever else I did outside of work, which was not fulfilling. And it gave me a problem to solve. And that was, how do we bring technology to people who don't have access to technology? How do we bring them access to digital skills so that they can make meaningful use of the internet and become economically empowered and educated? It led me to the job that I had last at Microsoft, which was an impact investor, teaching young people about tech and bringing tech to them. And then it led me to the job that I'm in now, which is running a startup program that's all about data protection, privacy, and security. And also I run thought leadership and strategy for our student technology skill building. And I look at it as helping young people prepare for the future of work, whether that's tech skills, whether that's professional development skills, or entrepreneurial spirit. I have one daughter who's now come back home, and she's really passionate about web development and wants to study computer science. And who knows what she's going to do with it. She sings. She just got a modeling contract, so she's now in Texas with me. She ran away from home, even though she's over 18. She had to run away from home. I had to have her in hiding for a month in the Capitol while we prepared her papers. And she just came back several months ago. I have 2 left. They're still in country, but they all, as soon as they're 18, will leave and come back to their mother. So that's what gives me the passion to do what I do.
Well, so I need to talk to you about these programs that we're looking at, because as you know, we founded Raices Cyber, which is our Hispanic Association in Cyber. And one of the programs that we're working on right now is Raices Kids, which is, how do we bring in the kids in middle school, high school, and the junior colleges into the field of cybersecurity by showing them, the different representation. And yes, there are really good mentors in cybersecurity that are Latinos, Hispanic, Latinx.
Yeah.
So we're starting that right now. And as a matter of fact, let me do a quick plug here.
Cool.
So for everybody that is out there, our new store for merchandise for Raices Cyber is up. So please go visit that.
I
as
can
well.
now.
Yes. And not only that, but our donation site is up, because I don't know if you heard, Raices Cyber is now a 501c3. So everything you do is tax deductible. So please go to raicescyber.org, and there you can go to take action for the donations, and Raices Cyber for the stores. So please go down there.
I'd be happy to just, I'm sorry for speaking over here, just real quick. I'd be happy to, if it makes sense to, do any talks. I have a few different things that fall underneath my student hat at IBM. We do a lot of, I have a student hub, for example, where we post blogs, we post videos. A lot of it leans toward, what I would call student zero. And I don't mean you're a zero. I mean, you've never been exposed to some of this stuff, whether it's information security, whether it's, computer science. because I look at this as, have you been exposed to, the different technical fields that you could potentially go into? I would be very, very happy to host a blog in my platform, in the IBM platform, and direct people to your organization. We have about 2,500 to 3,000 members in it right now, and it's our plan to grow it to 5,000 by the end of this year. We'll see. Hopefully we get there. And we also have a bi-weekly show that me and my counterpart, she's just turned 17. Her name is Lala Haloum. Her father has a Middle Eastern background. Her mother has a British background. She's, if I'm not mistaken, I think her mom's British. She lives in the UK. I met her when she was 16. She went to her first hackathon when she was 11. She started teaching herself to code on her own. She will be everyone's boss one day. I'm sure she's going to go on to very bright and amazing things. She's now an intern at IBM. So imagine she's 17 and got her first internship. I know I couldn't have done that at 17, but she's just a little rock star.
See, I love that because, and here's the thing, it really comes down to, and you talked about it earlier, about the way people think. And I wanted to talk about this because I talk about this a lot when it comes to school systems and things like that, especially with my kids. My son came to me at, 8 years old, 9 years old, and he saw what I did for a living. He was like, I want to be a hacker. You're going to use that term with me. I'm going to teach you programming. I'm going to teach you Python first so you can learn truly how to interact with programs and do different things. Yeah, he didn't like that too much and quickly got into graphic design. But I say this in that I tell anybody, it doesn't matter how old you are, if you give them the tools to succeed, they are going to succeed. Mm-hmm. You just have to be able to give them the tools. And me and Eric talked about this before, where when you look at some of these city schools and public schools that don't get the funding of others, they don't get the tools to succeed. So these kids don't really understand cybersecurity. They don't understand computers or anything like that. So they're not exposed to it.
Yeah, I think that's why making sure that you've got the right representation, the right access. I've translated one of our presentations. I had one of my colleagues, even though my Spanish is good, my Spanish is not good enough to, stand on a stage and do a keynote. I can be, I lived in Nicaragua. I lived in Spain. So my Spanish is pretty good, but it's not perfect, especially, my partner is Mexican American. His mother doesn't speak English, and I do my best to speak with her, but I mess things up. I don't get things right all the time. But I have translated one of our presentations, which is an introduction to enterprise computing, into Spanish, and it's geared toward young people. Now, again, it doesn't take that cybersecurity route, but it is, it does look at enterprise computing, and I think there are many other things that even me in my role I could be doing to make sure that others are included, whether that's whether that's young Hispanic Americans or just the Latinx community in general, regardless of where you might live.
And that's one of the things that we're doing. It's the Hispanic community. So I call it HL3. It's not Half-Life 3 for those gamers out there. HL3, it's Hispanics, Latino, Latina, and Latinx. HL3.
Have you looked at the Latinas? I think, what is it called? My colleagues have just collaborated with an organization. I think it's like Latinas in Tech.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. So there's the tech umbrella. We're trying to look at the InfoSec, Cybersec.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened was that one of our members actually came back from DEF CON and Black Hat and said, and I know it was a smaller one because of the COVID thing.
Yeah.
But she looked at me and said, there were 3 Hispanics of all types, 3 Hispanics at DEF CON this year that she could, identify.
Yeah.
And there was 0 organizations in cyber for Hispanics. So that's kind of one of the things that we're doing.
Did you try to create this, or did that happen before?
This has been 3 years in the making, but this was one of the ones that hit home. And one of the things that happened is as soon as we launched, we got called from Temple University, the CARES Lab, and they were like, oh, we've been trying to do research on cybersecurity organizations that cater to Hispanics. And there's in tech, there's Hispanic in tech and Techeria and all the other ones.
Right.
For security. So I don't want to say we're the first one, but we're leading the charge right now.
I do. You know, and what I find funny is, Eric, I don't, you know, you talk about how long you've been doing this, but you made the comment to me on my show about representing the Latinx community. And me and you talked about it. And I told you, I know of no groups, none, zilch.
Yeah,
I represent and I promote so many groups just because I feel like everybody needs to be heard. So whether it's Raices or BIC or whatever, I promote them all. And I was like, Eric, I have no one to promote. So I don't know, what do you want me to do about it? I can't. And so when he started this, I was 110% behind it because I was like, dude, thank you. Like, you've given me a reason and you've given me someone to promote it for Hispanics in cyber. And it's one of those things where, you know, we talk a lot about women in cyber. We talk a lot about blacks in cyber, but very little is talked about with Hispanics in cyber. I'm just being honest. It is very underrepresented in who talks about it. And the fact of the matter is, it is just as underrepresented as all the other groups. And so to finally have an organization that I know of, and again, there may be others that I just don't know about, I won't lie, but to have someone that I'm close to, that I talk to on a regular basis, doing something like this means a lot to me.
Come on, keep on going. The smart and good-looking guy. That
this is how I felt yesterday when I was getting all those messages about the whole Timberland thing. I'm like, wow, I need to start. So I want to ask you a question. We've talked about, you know, your organization being the or one of the, you know, only organizations in you know, for Hispanics in the space. So let me ask you, how can we all be better allies? And I got to answer my door. My daughter's knocking, but I'm listening. I can hear you.
How can we be better allies? That was the question. Okay, so that was a great question. Our organization, as a part of our membership, is, like I said, the Hispanic, Latino, Latina, and Latinx, and the allies. And one of the things that we're looking at is making it an inclusive organization. So that there are people that can be from any of the, any group whatsoever, and be part of our organization. While we are focused on the Hispanic community, we're trying to do an all-inclusive organization. Now, to answer your question directly of what can a ally do to support? So there's a lot of things. I mean, the mentorship part, our 4 pillars of our organization is events and networking, mentorship, job support, and education. And within the education, we're going to be doing education for early career, in progress career, in professional development, and leadership development. So in those different areas, we're going to need allies of all types, women, you know, men, Black, Hispanic, and as you know, because you know a lot of our friends in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, yes, you can have all shades of the color in the Caribbean culture. So we are looking at a lot of the help that we're going to need from the different organizations. We've been trying to contact some organizations so that we can get some support. at both educational support, mentoring, somebody like you that looks like you, that, is a woman who's, experienced so many different cultures. You'd be a great mentor for, some of the Hispanic women or even women in general that are starting in their career or transitioning into their career. So the allies serve so many different purposes. And
Things I
as a,
kind of think about. I think about this when I hear the word mentorship, and I think about. So I have to do the dishes later because I'm running out of cooking. Thank you.
when you finish, you can come over here.
Yeah, you can finish them later though. My daughter wants to do dishes. I'm like, hey, it's not time for dishes.
I'm leaving to chat.
So anyway, I was just thinking about this mentorship thing, and I think one of the reasons why, I think one of the reasons why I often struggle to mentor people, and I've now realized why I sometimes would struggle, and it wasn't the fact that I don't want to mentor, because I do mentor. I think it's kind of the definition of how you often see mentorship is like this consistent commitment every single month. And I don't think it needs to be like that, because that's overwhelming. It should be micro mentorship. And it's almost like, at a point in time, you come in and you come out, and it's not like this year-long thing where you feel like a jerk if you don't show up every single week or twice.
Or it feels like counseling. And it feels like counseling.
And I think that, I think that's one thing. I think the other thing is, I think not everyone has really been taught how to be a good mentor and how to be a good mentee. And that means, how do you really figure out, like, okay, what do I want to get out of this as Melissa, maybe the experienced professional, because it is a give and take. I should get something as much as I'm giving. So for example, I have Lela, I told you about. She's my intern now. I wrote an article about our relationship when she was 16. And I call her my 17-year-old mentor. Well, at that time, she was my 16-year-old mentor. And, we spend a lot of time together, and we spend a lot of time together talking about how do you be a good mentor? How do you be a good mentee? And that in reality, sometimes you're the mentor, sometimes you're the mentee, and you flip those roles, and it doesn't feel like work if you really get on with one another. Because I think it's just like, finding a therapist or a friend. You got to get on and you got to enjoy, sitting down and working with one another. It shouldn't feel like work, like you're going to the doctor and you're missing your appointment with the doctor and you're going to get your $45, charge for not showing up, and then you feel like a jerk,
And that's the sign of a good leader. Okay. Can you learn? I always say that my father once taught me one thing: you only know that you know nothing. Okay. So when you go into that relationship, a mentor-mentee, your mentor, what are you going to get out of this? You're going to learn some things.
Look, I learned a heck of a lot.
And you should.
From Lela.
And you should.
Oh, I can't even tell you. Like, sometimes when I'm working on something, I'm like, you know what? I don't want to go to my VP for this. I'm going to go to Lela. Hey, Lela, I'm working on this thing. Here's what I'm doing. I want somebody who, like, is coming out this from out of nowhere. Now, there's certain things I don't bring to Lela because it's just not the right thing to bring to Lela. But every time in my, like, student life, the student things I'm working on, it's very rare that I roll something out without saying, hey, Lela, does this make sense? Or, hey, Lela, can you read this? No, again, she's on my team. And so, I'm not just, expecting her to do stuff in her free time for free. Now she's paid for it. She did volunteer for a long time in an ambassador capacity, and she got prizes and swag and gifts and all kinds of stuff. But now I'm formally paying her, which is what I've always wanted to do.
And now, and see, that makes sense. And I got to be honest, I said something, I think it was last week or the week before, on my show, or maybe even this show, where I talked about a 17-year-old. Yes, a 17-year-old that schooled me on reverse engineering malware. And it completely blew my mind because I didn't know how old he was at the time. We were just talking. We're going over hack the box, reverse engineering stuff. I had just gone through Graham and had taken a few weeks
Oh,
off.
I got somebody for you all to meet then.
Right.
Ooh,
And so I was going through that, and I was like, hey, I'm trying to keep up the speed so I could pass this test. Like, what's this, and this? And he schooled me. Like, he literally walked me through everything. And I was like, dude, how old are you? And he was like, oh, I think he was like 16 or 17. I was like, teach me, please. Can you please teach me your ways? Like, you are a genius and need to teach me your ways. And it's one of those things where I think we get it so far away from willing to take advice and take leadership and take knowledge from those younger than us because we feel like we should know more than them. But you cannot be afraid to do that. You can't be afraid to learn from the younger generation because they grew up in it. They grew up knowing more than you know.
Well, here's what I always say. When I went to school, a lot of the things that I went to school for are in museums right now.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, my first mainframe was a VAX VMS, a DEC.
You were there when the first bug was in the bug, was an actual bug in the computer?
We used to use tape. That was why it was called patch.
You found the first bug because there was a bug in your computer? That was you?
Wah, 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 wah.
That didn't come on. Okay.
It's okay, Cyber Papa.
I love him. I love him.
All right. So, I want to thank you very much as we're coming up at the top of the hour here. I want to thank you very, very much for being here and for sharing everything that you did with the with our audience. We had a great audience. I want to thank everybody that's on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Congratulations on the show. Please drop us some links here about your show so that people can go and register to the IBMZ. And also we need to talk about some swag for me because my kids started saying, "Oh, Melissa,
you want some swag? I actually have some. Yeah, I have like 100 shirts or something crazy like that.
Well, we have like 8 kids, so.
Well, I mean, 8, 100, whatever.
It's the same. Look, once you get past 3, there's no difference.
Okay, so how old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking? Like, how old? Like, are they? How young are they?
Is Carmen still there?
Yeah, she's in the chat still.
She's still. So our oldest is 29, and our youngest is 13 now.
Oh, this is perfect. So I will make you a side deal, and that's get them signed up for my student hub, and I will send everybody a t-shirt.
There you go. That's my other half.
All right, cool. Get everybody signed up for my student hub or my Accelerator hub or my live stream. So I'm going to put a few links in the chat window that you can share as you see fit. All right, so I've got my live stream that I put in our chat window on this side. I will put my student hub in there. There we go.
And I'm going to add this to the...
this is my live stream that I do every other week. This is really geared more toward the startup community. If you're interested in listening to startups that are very interested in data protection, privacy, and security, all of these startups are, collecting sensitive data, are very passionate about confidential computing. This is where I interviewed Timbaland and his team today, which was cool, so you can check that out. That's that one. The next one is my student hub for anyone who is interested in learning about the work that we do for students. I'd be happy to host any blogs if anyone has, any tutorials or any talks or anything that you think might make sense for students. I also am very open to collaborating, putting anyone and everyone in front of my students who have the right stuff to share that inspires young people to go into careers throughout our wide breadth of what we consider the field of tech. So that's that one. I've got another live stream that I do. I do a live stream every week, and I alternate between entrepreneurs, and students. And so this last one that I'm going to put, are you going down to her house? Have fun.
Come on, let's go. Thank you, Mom.
Okay, IBM.biz/student X. All right, cool. So this last one is my live stream for my student audience. And I do something every week. Next week is going to be really fun. I have an event every single day. It happens at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. And it's to celebrate the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which are all of the global goals that we need to solve to make the world a better place, essentially solving the world's wickedest challenges, such as gender inequality, reducing inequalities, hunger, poverty, challenges with life on land and underwater.
I also want to introduce you to Miss Kalila Scott from the Tech Sec Chicks. I can't say that too fast. Tech Checks Chick. And she's on her screen right now.
All right. Hi, Khalila. Nice to meet you. I'd be happy to collaborate. For those of you who don't know me on Twitter, you can find me at Mentor Africa with a K, and I will put that. Oh, I think I have it on my do I have it on my name? I think I do, don't I?
We follow each other, so I'm good.
Okay, cool. So for any of you who are following along and aren't connected with me in Twitter, if you'd like to collaborate, if you've got students that you work with, it's easy for me to get T-shirts out to people in the U.S. hard outside of the U.S. And all I need is register for my student hub, and I can send T-shirts.
What about some Linux? Some Linux? No, okay.
I know, right? Like, send me a mainframe, get me like that Z15.
I need servers. Actually, Eric, I need you to send me those RPIs. You're slacking.
Okay. Well, with that, guys, thank you very much, everybody that's on the streams. Thank you very much. Don't forget, go to raicescyber.org for take action for donate to us and our store. And we're going to be rolling out memberships here really soon. So thank you very much. Thank you, Melissa, for being here. Thank you, everybody. Cyber Warrior, what's coming up tomorrow on Security Hour?
So tomorrow on Security Happy Hour, we're going to have Adrian McNamara, and we're going to talk about, is cybersecurity right for you? And that's just because of his transition from what he got his degree in and what, he learned, and then basically getting a Sec Plus out of nothing. So it's going to be an amazing episode, and I hope everybody tunes in. And Melissa, I need to get you on the show.
Yeah, let me know. I love this stuff. It gives me energy, and especially I hear happy hour. I hear happy. I hear hour. I need
your drink. My show, you bring your drink. All
Good,
right?
I will.
I just bought a Broken Skull IPA case, so
super.
Needless to say, it was expensive because it's an IPA.
No worries. I'd be honored. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Anyone wants to chat further, I'm available. Feel free to DM me. DM me friendly things. Not weird things. We all, us women in tech get a lot of that weird stuff. So
look, what you need to do is you need to get a picture of a really big one and say, is yours this big? No, go away. Like, you need to just send it back like, oh, here's mine.
A giant eggplant.
Right? Like, here's mine. I'm just saying, like, it would be hilarious. Just that, look, you gotta go and you gotta respond back in kind. And I get it. It's a pain in the ass. I understand completely. But at the end of the day, to get people to quit, you just start fucking with them. Seriously, just start fucking with them.
Can you ladies please save me from these two right here? All right. With that, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, and see you soon.